Tite Kubo is the mangaka behind Bleach. With its rising popularity, the manga series was soon adapted into an anime that took shonen fans by storm. Kubo's panels are packed with action-filled battle scenes, compelling character arcs, and stunning Bleach backgrounds. One thing's for sure though, his evolving art style and bold use of contrast are truly a sight to behold. When we break down and analyze Tite Kubo's art style, we must first consider his artistic timeline. Put simply, he improved significantly in areas like detail, anatomy, and overall composition. This progression is evident throughout the volumes. Even the cover art pieces show considerable stylistic changes over time. However, there's a lot to learn when we really dive into the nitty-gritty details of Kubo's art. Kubo draws the eyes with extreme expressiveness, making them a standout feature for each character. He often emphasizes them with darker outlines or even with a blackened sclera. Gentle characters tend to have larger eyes with big irises, while more mysterious characters feature elongated eyes. The size of the irises also reveals the character's true intentions. Character design 101, I suppose. Kubo frequently adds sketch lines, keeps most irises clean of shadows and clutter, and occasionally includes eye creases. But this varies depending on the character's setting and current state. The eyebrows are generally drawn quite thin on all his characters, but they definitely play an important role in their overall expression. When it comes to facial structure, Kubo favors sharp angular jawlines, noses, and slight rounded chins. In Kubo's own words, for me, drawing comics is not about drawing lines and faces, but about portraying the mood. So, whether or not you're working on a novel or a comic, you work to portray the mood on paper with words and drawings. And I'm sure we can all agree on this self-reflection. It describes Kubo's work as a whole. If I didn't stumble into this quote, I would have described it similarly, purely based on the artwork alone. One of the main drivers of emotion in Kubo's art is the way he draws the mouth. I'm serious when I say it's something worth studying. He's masterful at it. Kubo often draws the mouths big and expressive, allowing characters to convey their intentions so powerfully that it could bring a child to tears. Though he pushes the limits, he never makes them too cartoony. Thanks to his elongated face designs, he can achieve massive range of expressions in a very convincing way. To pull this off effectively is no small feat. Kubo also excels at capturing the protagonist and antagonist vibes, especially by combining the eyes with the mouth. Ichigo's hollow form is a prime example of this emotional intensity. When Ichigo fights, you can clearly see that he's giving everything he has. But when the hollow takes over, there's an added layer of insanity, subtly indicated by creases in the cheeks. Also, Kubo tends to show the ears a lot, reminding me of Bengus a bit. In case of the hair, he did change it a bit through the years, adding way more volume, detail and overall energy in the line work, but I will address this in a sec. As far as anatomy, what can I say? The characters are over the top tall and slender for current manga standards. Despite so, I think it fits the overall style well, and Kubo still adds a good amount of muscles that tone the body convincingly. So when we compare his art style from back in the day to now, the most obvious will be that the face dimensions changed. In the first volumes, he used to draw the eyes in the center and the mouth at the lower end of the jaw, chin level, pushing all the facial features down. In the later volumes, Kubo made the faces taller. With a rather extended nose, it pushes the eyes above the center, making not only his style, but also the characters look visually more mature. Also, the characters move way more freely in the later volumes, really showing his skill as an artist to capture the moment. I think this is definitely because Kubo put more effort into mastering the anatomical details, giving him more range of motion, breaking the rules and pushing the scene. He uses a traditional G-pen to create thin, short and fast strokes, which are especially noticeable in the hair. While the horizontal and vertical hatching lines are common in manga, Kubo uses this technique to such an effect that it creates a significant sense of volume. Here are some examples where this technique is highly effective, but challenging to execute. What do I mean by this? Imagine if the neck area was entirely black. This will draw the attention away from the face and thus the eyes onto the neck. However, Kubo cleverly leaves jagged spaces in between, ensuring that the focus remains on the intended areas. Similarly, if the mouth were rendered completely black, it would again divert attention away from the eyes. This technique isn't unique to Kubo. Nonetheless, he employs it frequently with subtle mastery. It's all over the place when you look closely. Another powerful effect often seen in manga is the use of line art to convey pressure or energy. In Bleach, this is often represented as Ryatsu, spiritual pressure creating an intense gravitational energy that weighs down on the characters. Kubo visualizes this concept incredibly effectively throughout the manga. If I have any spare time, I work on coloring or some other task. It's so rare to get any time off. I don't remember what I did last time I had time off. I might give myself a few hours to get a haircut, but it's back to work once I get back. When we switch to Kubo's coloring artworks, he mainly used the hard edges in the beginning. He later changed to soft edges and ultimately a combination of both. I love this type of style and it's tough to pull off to such a level as Kubo does. Also, the motion of the characters are way more energetic in his later works. This is definitely a tribute to his experience. I think when I'm drawing, I wasn't just clarifying the lines, but illustrating the air. Therefore, no matter in drawing or writing, neither words nor lines, but singularly illustrating the air. I always have this feeling of bringing the air into paper when drawing. When it comes to backgrounds, personally, I don't mind if they're minimal or bleach. It's not uncommon for mangaka to have a team that renders and traces photographs for background details. I've seen discussions comparing Kubo to artists like Murata, but ultimately it comes down to the personal style of each mangaka and what they choose to emphasize. Kubo mentioned in an interview that he imagines fights with empty backgrounds first, focusing on finding the best angle to depict them. He then puts great effort aiming to make the readers feel the character's pain. I don't want to draw backgrounds if the focus is on the character. In Bleach, a lot of times when a new character appears, I leave the background white. I want the reader to feel the mood the character gives when they are there. Characters make the setting real, so I keep that in mind when I work on each character. The easiest way to sum it up is with the less is more principle. In Kubo's work, the characters, the main drivers of emotion and mood, are always the focal point. Because he uses such stark contrast, his black and white art is incredibly powerful, sometimes even more so than his color illustrations. Black and white emphasizes the silhouette of the character and the composition of the scene. While color can add a nice vibe to the aesthetic, it can sometimes dilute the energy and shift the focal point. However, this is a very personal preference, as most people tend to prefer color over black and white. Still, in Kubo's full color illustrations, where the characters appear more relaxed, the color versions look great. If you're an aspiring manga artist and want to learn about paneling, check out the later volumes of Bleach. Some of these panels are just insane. Kubo has a knack of making characters look cool and conveying the emotion on multiple levels. The close-ups are particularly strong because he pays such attention to the facial details, making his characters incredibly expressive. He also uses dynamic angles, which makes some scenes even more engaging. Kubo often arcs the characters or tilts a viewpoint slightly to heighten the effect. In the early stages of his work, he used the typical mangaka speed lines and motion effects quite frequently. Later on, he used them more sparingly, focusing more on emphasizing the intensity and emotion of the moment. Moreover, Kubo's use of sound effects is reminiscent of how Akira Toriyama does it. In fact, I read that while Kubo had many different inspirations, he learned a lot from Toriyama, particularly in how to present antagonists as strong, scary and cool. I don't really have a specific process to make characters. When I start a new story arc, I think of the stock of characters in my mind. I draw them in a group and see if they are appropriate to the next story. Actually, as a random fun fact, he did character designs for an action role-playing visual novel styled game called Sakura Roars. Looking through an artist's journey can be very powerful, especially for anyone who wants to improve their craft. His first Big Shonen Jump launch didn't go as expected and was cancelled after 27 chapters. The most important thing I learned from Zombie Powder is that I should always follow my heart and draw what I want to draw. I was still holding back. I wasn't used to weekly serializations and I was reacting to my editor's comments. But now I focus more on staying true to my own style and creating what I want to do. I'm Luid nog altijd GPVugs and I have to say some of Kubo's manga panels are on another level. Sure, there are many great mangaka, but Bleach, especially in the black and white form, captures the essence of shonen badassery like no other.